Miis are some of the most iconic characters in recent gaming history. They were introduced back when the Wii first launched almost 20 years ago, and since then there have been a bunch of games that have Miis in them. Games like Wii Sports, Wii Sports Resort, Wii Party, Tamagotchi Life, the list goes on. A lot of people, including myself, love the customization that Miis have to offer, and in my case, it's not hard to compare Mii customization to a game that I play that also has character customization, Rec Room. They are both not the same thing whatsoever. I personally think that Miis are 10 times better and more in-depth. However, with my experience in making Rec Room concept art and making videos like recreating Roblox faces in Rec Room, I was really curious if I could recreate Mii characters in Rec Room. To be more exact, I want to try and recreate some of the CPU Miis from games like Wii Sports and Wii Party to see how well they would work in Rec Room's art style. Starting with a Mii that I'm sure everybody has seen at least once, and his name is Miguel. Now, you've probably think that you've never seen this Mii in your life. However, if you've ever played Wii Sports Resort, then you most definitely have, because he actually appears when you first start the game right here. He's actually the pilot. But not only that, he's actually one of the only Miis that I know of that actually has a voice. Take a listen.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, everyone, form up.
So I'm considering him a pretty iconic Mii, and for that reason I had to recreate him. And I think he's the perfect Mii to show you what I'll actually be doing in this video. Because you may think that I'll just be making an outfit in Rec Room that looks like the Mii and that's it. However, there's a bit more to it that I'm doing for all of these Miis. Let me give you an example. This is the original photo that I took of Miguel's Rec Room recreation. As you can see, all of the items I used are Rec Room original items except for the mustache, which is the chevron mustache made by the Disco Man. And you may notice that if you put the original photo next to the actual Miis, that some things aren't exactly one-to-one. For example, the colors. So here is an edited version of the photo. As you can see, I pretty much just adjusted the colors a bit as well as gave him colored eyebrows. And yeah, the eyebrows might be controversial, especially since I didn't add any noses, but honestly, I like the Rec Room eyebrows a lot, and I just don't like how the Rec Room noses look, so sue me. Don't actually sue me, please. But anyways, that's pretty much the gist of what I'll be doing. Basically, I'll recreate the Mii in Rec Room, take a picture, and then edit that picture to make the character look more like the Mii. And I'll also be doing stuff like adding wrinkles, freckles, makeup, all that fun stuff, which is perfect for the next Mii I want to talk about, Rachel. Rachel is one of the Miis that you've probably seen before or faced before, but just didn't know the name of until now. She's a pro in Wii boxing, being the 9th best opponent, which good for her, but besides being good at a few other sports like basketball, she doesn't really have anything else going for her. And that's going to be a trend with a lot of the Miis in this video. Obviously, I can't just fill the entire video with Matt and Abby's the entire time, so I used a lot of Miis that you probably would have forgotten by now, and I think I did a pretty good job of selecting them. But anyways, back to Rachel. Let's first talk about her unedited image, and before you say anything, just let me cook, okay? For her hair, I used the Shelby hair by Sushi, and for her outfit, I used the pink collar dress also by Sushi. Just a heads up, you're going to be hearing her name a lot because I used a lot of her items. And yeah, her unedited version looks okay at best, but if we look at the edited version I made of her, it looks 10 times better. It's honestly one of my favorites that I've done for this video. As you can see, not only did I adjust the colors a bit, I also gave her freckles and I gave her lipstick. And I think the lipstick is my favorite part about this recreation. It just turned out so much better than I thought it was going to. I'm honestly really obsessed with it. Also, her recreation reminds me of Mean Girls, so you know, there's that. But anyways, let's next talk about a Mii who has pro status in more than one sport, that being Akira. And this is where this video will start to get a little confusing because there's actually two Miis named Akira. The one that I'm talking about was made first, and the second Mii is this guy from Wii Sports Club and Wii Party U. I don't know why Nintendo did this because it just makes things more confusing in my opinion, especially since this isn't the only time they've done this. But anyways, Akira here, this Akira to be exact, he actually wasn't even all that good in the first Wii Sports game. As you can see, he was actually one of the worst in the original Wii Sports game. But in Wii Sports Resort, that all changes as he's actually pro class in every single skill-based sport, being basketball, table tennis, and swordplay. He's also master difficulty in Wii Party and has first place in the minigame Balance Boat, having 17 Miis balanced. And the main reason I chose him is because he's one of the only official Miis to have glasses with red lenses. And I'm not gonna lie, I sort of regretted it after making his recreation because I could not find any glasses that look similar to his. As you can see from his unedited image, these rec band Ray-Ban aviators by Cookie Lynn were the closest I could find, and while they're not perfect, as you'll see in a minute, they were good enough. For the rest of the outfit, I used the Archer goatee by The Disco Man, a brown baggy t-shirt by Word, and I also used the helmet hair for his hair, which usually isn't possible without a helmet, but with the help of a UGC hat made by LTSA, it managed to work just fine. And as you can see from the edited image, I made a few changes, including making the glasses actually red, which actually worked out a lot better than I thought it would. And I made his mouth into a frown, which I actually almost forgot. I only did it like right as I started the script for this video, so. But anyways, his recreation actually turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to, which I'm happy about. So let's do something a little different next and talk about one of the first Wii Sports champions for this video. If you don't already know, champions are one of the last CPU Miis that you'll face in the Wii Sports games before getting a reward, I guess. I honestly don't really know. And for their title alone, they are all pretty iconic, so if you grinded Wii Sports or Wii Sports Resort, you most likely know who they all are. Except for the cycling champion. Hey, did you know the cycling has a champion? Because I didn't. The first champion I would like to talk about is Lucia, who is notorious for being the champion of table tennis and has nothing else going for her in the Wii Sports series. I know that sounds mean, but it's the truth, because at best, she's okay at every other sport besides tennis, which she's bad at. She is an unlockable opponent in Switch Sports Volleyball, but I don't think anyone would have even known that if I didn't tell you, so. Besides the Wii Sports series, she is master difficulty in Wii Party and is first place in the minigame Jump Rope Jam with 35 jumps, and is apparently the best friendship pair and friend connection when paired with Matt. And according to the Wii Sports Wiki, she was originally supposed to have brown glasses, but they ended up getting scrapped, which is cool, I guess. Anyways, for her Rec Room recreation, her unedited image actually already looks a lot like her, mainly because Rec Room has a mouth and eyes that are very similar to hers. For her outfit, I used the warm chestnut Starfall shirt by Sushi, and for her hair, I used these Junie twin tails made by Lol. I think that's how you pronounce her name, Lol. I'm probably wrong, I'm gonna be honest. And as for her edited image, I didn't really have to do much since her eyebrows as a Mii are already black for some reason, so all I did was just adjust the colors and add freckles, and I think it turned out pretty good. So since we talked about a Mii who's a champion at one sport, let's next talk about a Mii who is good at all of the sports depending on who is playing them. That's right, I'm going to be talking about the guest Miis. There are a total of 6 guest Miis in the Wii games that include them, and while I would recreate all of them, they have pretty much the same face, so I ended up deciding on 2 guests to recreate, Guest C and Guest E. There isn't really any sort of reason why I chose these 2 as the guests to recreate, but what I will say is that these 2 were really easy to recreate, and that's because all of their features, their eyes, mouths, and eyebrows were easy to recreate in Rec Room because Rec Room actually had them, or at least things that were similar to them. As you can see, their unedited versions already look like their Mii versions quite well, actually. For Guest C, I used Mike's hair made by Collector, as well as the basic baggy t-shirt by Word, and for Guest E, I used the Janet hair by Sushi and the blue collar dress also made by, you guessed it, Sushi. And for the edited versions of both of them, all I really did was just adjust the colors and color the eyebrows. Both of these guys were really simple to recreate. So let's move on to somebody who wasn't as simple to recreate. Theo. I think at least a couple of you know Theo, and I think there is a few reasons for that. For one, this guy, and 2, he's a pro in almost all of the sports except for swordplay and sometimes baseball, making him one of the best Miis in the Wii Sports franchise. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's one of the only male Miis to have lipstick, which I don't think is meant to be lipstick, but I'm not gonna go too deep into that. Let's just say he has lipstick on, okay? But anyways, him being a pro at almost every sport means that you've probably encountered him and have gotten absolutely destroyed by him. I myself have experienced this, by the way. I remember recently I was absolutely cooking in table tennis, and as soon as I got to face him, I got wrecked. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to recreate him. And as you can see, for the unedited version, there's actually not a lot to talk about. I didn't use any UGC for him. I just used the Rec Room original items, as his hair is pretty simple, and I figured there wasn't a point in buying some purple clothes for him when I already had some that weren't UGC. However, when looking at at the edited version, there's a lot more to talk about. For one, I adjusted the colors and added his lipstick, which I think turned out pretty good. And two, I actually moved his face down a tad bit to make his forehead bigger, as that's a pretty iconic part of his character, and I thought that he looked weird without his bigger forehead. I think his edited recreation turned out pretty accurate, and since we're talking about Miis that are pro in many sports, let's talk about a Mii that's pro in 0 of the sports, that being Ryan. You probably also know who Ryan is, except this time it's not because of how good he is at every sport. No, he's actually the exact opposite. Ryan is the first opponent you face against in both boxing and swordplay, making him the tutorial opponent for both and the worst opponent in both. His best sport is baseball, having around 600 or 700 skill level. I'm so cringe, bro, holy shit. And in every other sport he is under 600, making him one of the worst Miis in the Wii Sports series. And that's pretty much the only reason why he's iconic, and the only reason why I wanted to recreate him in this video. As you can see, his unedited version already looks like his Mii, and he's also not using any UGC, so there isn't really much to talk about again. And actually, the same goes for his edited version. The only thing that's noticeably different is his mouth, which I changed to be more accurate to his Mii. So since we talked about one of the worst Miis in Wii Sports, let's next talk about another champion, this time being one that you've probably never heard of, and it's actually going to get really confusing, so just bear with me, okay? This is Barbara. She is the tennis champion for Wii Sports Club, which is probably why you've never heard of her, because who has played Wii Sports Club? Be so for real right now. And this is Elena, who is Master Difficulty in Wii Party U and has first place in the Ice Spinners and Button Smashers minigame. Yeah, so for some reason she has different names in Wii Sports Club and Wii Party U, and what makes this more confusing is that both of these names are also used for other Miis, meaning that we have another Elena and another Barbara. Fortunately, the second Elena and Barbara aren't in this video, so since Wii Sports Club came after Wii Party U and her name is Barbara in Wii Sports Club, that's what we're gonna call her, so say hi to Barbara. So now that we've gotten that confusing mess out of the way, since there's not much else to talk about, let's also say hi to her unedited Rec Room recreation. For her hair, I used the Katrina hair by Sushi, and for her outfit, I used the Sweet Riot wrap skirt by, you guessed it again, Sushi. And for her edited version, there's a little bit to talk about. One, I added blush, and two, her eyebrow color is different compared to her hair color. That is on purpose, her Mii is like that too. And she's not the only Mii who has different colored hair and eyebrows, as the next Mii I want to talk about, Kiko, has black hair and brown eyes. Kiko here is pro class in regular tennis and is the worst female at table tennis, which makes sense, I guess, and she is also the only Wii CPU Mii to have braids in her hair, which is kind of cool. But other than that, there isn't really much to say about her, which is fine because I think her appearance in general is one of the more unique ones in this video. I really like how she looks as a Mii. Nintendo did a really good job with her, so I really wanted to do a good job with her recreation. For her unedited image, I used a few different UGC creators for her. I used these brown glasses by Duck Xander, this flare sleeve collar dress by Lol, and these butterfly braids by Sushi. Now, obviously Rec Room doesn't have moles or blush in their character creator, so I had to edit them in myself in her edited image. I also changed her eyebrow color as well as her mouth, as the mouth in her unedited version was meant to be temporary. I think I nailed her recreation pretty spot on, so let's next talk about another unique Mii, this time being the next champion for this video, Elisa. Elisa is actually both a champion and a beginning opponent, being the tennis champion and the beginning opponent in baseball. She is also the tennis coach in the returning balls minigame and the timing your swing minigame, and on top of that, she is also a tennis legend in Nintendo Switch Sports and a pro in boxing. She is also hated on by this guy, so she has a lot of accomplishments. She was a pretty obvious character that I had to recreate, and she is also a pretty unique character. Not only does she have different colored hair and eyebrows, but she has this mouth, which I'm gonna be honest was pretty difficult to recreate. Let's start with the unedited version though. For the hair, I used the Sophia half up hair by Lol, and for the dress, I used this shoulder tie dress also made by Lol. Like I said, the edited version was a bit difficult just because of the lipstick and I didn't really know how to go about it, but I think I did a pretty decent job recreating it. I also added her blush as well as the usual stuff I've done 1,000 times now. So let's switch things up a bit and talk about Takumi, because he was pretty easy to recreate. Takumi Takumi here is a pro in both tennis as well as baseball, but he is the second worst opponent in boxing. He is also master difficulty in Wii Party, and is first place in a minigame called About Face, having a score of 3,000 points, as well as first place in Basket Bonanza with a score of 40. Let's be honest for a sec, there are a lot of CPU Miis that exist, so you probably don't even know who Takumi is, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I chose him. He's also relatively easy to recreate, as you can see from the unedited image, as both his eyes and mouths have similar replicas in Rec Room, and on top of that, I didn't have to buy any UGC items. I was able to use only RRO items. Off topic, but for the record, I think I spent like more than $50 on this video, so if you could hype up this video so I can make my money back, that would be great. But anyways, for his edited version, I really didn't have to do much. All I did was adjust the color slightly and added wrinkles. Super simple. So let's go back to talking about Miis that aren't as simple, and one that instantly comes to mind for me is Asami. Asami's first appearance is actually in Wii Sports Resort and not the original Wii Sports, so she doesn't have much to say about her. She's a pro in table tennis, master difficulty in Wii Party, and is first place in the minigame Tippy Traverse with a time of 5 minutes left, and that's all she has going for her, to be honest. The only reason why I chose her is her looks. To quote this guy, she looks like a goldfish. And that's definitely not a bad thing, but in this case it kind of was, because she was by far the hardest Mii to recreate in Rec Room. And that's mainly because of her mouth, as there's not really anything that's similar to it whatsoever, so I kind of had to improvise a little bit. For her unedited image, I used pretty much all RRO items except for her glasses, which are these gold sassy glasses by Sushi. Now originally for her edited image, I was going to use this mouth, but in the end I couldn't figure out how to make it look nice, so as you can see, I just made a new mouth for her. Other than that though, there's not really that much to talk about besides her blush and eyebrows, and honestly, while she does look okay, she's probably my least favorite recreation, which is kind of unfortunate. So let's next talk about one of my favorite recreations, that being Ava. Ava is actually one of the best Miis in Wii Sports, being a pro in every sport except for table tennis and sometimes baseball, depending on what her score is. She also plays on the champion basketball team and is a basketball champion herself in Nintendo Switch Sports, so she has a lot of accomplishments. Also, as a fun fact, she actually has a few different unused things about her. She was not only originally going to have red as her favorite color, but she was also originally going to have blue glasses, a mole, and facial hair. It's not important to this video whatsoever, I'm not going to recreate her unused features, but it's still pretty cool to mention. Anyways, she's actually one of the more unique Miis in this video, as she's the only one in this video who has eyeshadow on her character. She also has blush, which I actually didn't even notice at first, it's so hidden, but these two things made her recreation pretty interesting. For her unedited recreation though, you can't see any makeup because guess what? Rec Room doesn't have any makeup, who would have guessed? Her dress that I used is a Rec Room original item, but for her hair, I used the Sophia hair by Lol. And for her edited version, I added both the blush and the eyeshadow as well as adjusted the colors. I also adjusted her mouth slightly, I just added a few lines to it, it's not really that noticeable. So let's move on, and since Ava plays on the basketball champions team, let's move on and talk about the basketball champion himself, Tommy. Tommy is also one of the Miis who didn't appear in the original Wii Sports, but he still has a few accomplishments, more than some Miis who did debut in the first game. He is the basketball champion and one of the more annoying champions in Wii Sports, as his team can actually jump higher and rarely misses a shot, making him really difficult to beat. He's actually also a tennis legend in Nintendo Switch Sports, playing with Elisa, which surprised me a lot. I thought he would be the basketball legend in that game. He is also a pro in swordplay and is almost a pro in table tennis, making him one of the best Miis in Wii Sports Resort besides cycling, but who cares about cycling, let's be honest. So he was another really obvious Mii that I just had to recreate inside a Rec Room, and it was also pretty easy to recreate. Just by looking at his unedited image, it already looks a lot like him. And on top of that, all of the items I used were Rec Room original items, which was really nice. His edited version, however, might look the same at first, but it's actually a lot different. As you can see, I not only adjusted his colors a lot, but I also added his wrinkles, and I also added his eyelashes, which you may not have even noticed that he has, but he has them. And with that, we only have 3 more Miis that we need to talk about, all of which are probably ones that you've been waiting on, so let's go ahead and start with Sakura. Sakura has a few achievements, but since she's actually not technically a pro in any of the sports and instead has both champion and legend status, she doesn't have as many accomplishments as some other Miis in this video. She is the baseball champion in Wii Sports and is the badminton champion in Nintendo Switch Sports, as well as master difficulty in Wii Party. She also holds first place in the Wii Party minigame Flycycle Team, having a distance of 355 yards. She is also the lowest ranked champion in the Wii Sports franchise, having a baseball score of only 1,200. Still, she is probably one of the more iconic champions just because of how difficult beating her can be, since baseball is pretty luck-based at times. So she was an obvious choice for me to recreate, and as you can see, her unedited recreation already looks a bit like her, which was nice. For her hair, I ended up going with a Rec Room original item, but for her outfit, I used this pink pullover hoodie by Sushi. You may notice that her mouth looks off in her unedited version, and that's because I was originally going to make a custom mouth for her, but I ended up just editing in a mouth that was already in the game. I also adjusted her colors as well as added her wrinkles, and I think she looks pretty nice. I'm really happy with how she turned out. So with Sakura being done, we only have 2 Miis left to talk about, and more than likely, you know which Miis they are, so I'm not going to keep hiding them. They're Matt and Abby. So let's go ahead and save Matt for last and talk about Abby next, because she has a pretty interesting backstory in my opinion. Abby is interesting because she's actually one of the best Miis in Wii Sports Resort only, but she's one of the worst Miis in the first Wii Sports game. In Wii Sports, she is terrible at both tennis and baseball, and she doesn't even compete in boxing. However, in Wii Sports Resort, she is a pro in every skill-based sport there, which means she's a pro in swordplay, basketball, and table tennis. She is also only beginner difficulty in Wii Party, so skill-wise, she's not really that interesting, so why did I save her for last? Well, it's all thanks to this YouTuber named Poofisher, who I've talked about multiple times in this video, but actually haven't named until now, so hopefully I pronounce his name right because I actually don't know. Abby is actually Poofisher's favorite CPU Mii in the Wii franchise, so she appears a lot in his videos and is also talked about a lot in his videos. So because of that, she has become pretty iconic over the years, and because of that, she was one of the first Miis that I thought of when making this video. As you can see, in the unedited version, I used the blue fit and flare dress by Lol, as well as the Cali hair by Sushi. She already looks a lot like her Mii here, so for her edited version, all I really did was add freckles, change the eyebrow color, as well as adjust the colors for her in general. She turned out really good. She's honestly one of my favorite Miis that I've recreated, which I'm really happy about. So with that, let's move on to the last Mii for this video, and I think everybody already knows who he is. It's Matt. Matt is by far the most iconic Mii in the Wii franchise, and by looking at his accomplishments, it's not hard to see why. He is the boxing coach, the boxing champion, the speed slice referee, the swordplay champion, the swordplay showdown final boss, and the Shambara legend in Nintendo Switch Sports. He is also master difficulty in Wii Party, has the most first places in the Wii Party minigames, having first place in Clover Hunt, Solo Mode Expert, and Friend Connection alongside Lucia, and he is the beginning opponent in tennis, which is probably the least impressive out of his accomplishments. Actually, it's not really an accomplishment, but it's still worth mentioning. All of the things that I've mentioned have made him pretty iconic in the Nintendo community. He's probably the most well-known Mii ever. And fun fact, originally he was going to have his favorite color be red, and he was originally going to have gray glasses and a mole, so he almost looked pretty different compared to his final design. And his final design is one of the more unique ones in this video, as he not only has a bit of a stubble, which isn't very noticeable, but he also has a cat mouth, which I only noticed recently and thought it was funny enough to mention. Anyways, for his unedited version, I used an RRO item for his beard, and I guess technically for his hair because he's bald. However, I did use this orange oversized hoodie by Insane46, and I think his unedited version turned out really nice. So once again, I didn't have to do much for his edited version. All I really did was adjust the colors as well as add his stubble. He turned out really good in my opinion, and I think he's a perfect Mii to end off this video. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then I think you would also like these 2 videos where I recreated Roblox faces and Rec Room. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.